Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words you can say.
All right, just getting started here. What's up, everybody? As everybody's scrolling by, this is live is just getting started, just going live. So I'm hoping that this gets out. Jump into the queue if you want to talk about. I know this might be. I don't even know if it's going to be interesting. Well, it's going to be interesting if people want to pay attention. But this seems to be the topic, and I wanted to discuss it, even though not a lot of people watch it. But we'll find out if that happens or not. About universal healthcare, because frankly. I typically take a position as a staunch independent, not affiliated with the Democratic or Republican Party in any way, not registered with either party. Never have I been, never will I be. And obviously people in rural America and in urban America are seemingly coming around to the idea of universal health care. But most people don't know what it is. I mean, it's stunning, and that's what we're going to talk about today, because most people don't really understand how simple universal healthcare is, and all the anti-government people claiming that the government can't run healthcare. I think if you're willing to pay attention to what I'm going to say today and have discussions with other people, I think you're going to realize how simple and how obvious it should be that instead of paying out of pocket for-profit insurance companies for your healthcare. I don't know why anyone would be so delusional to think that anyone should pay a for-profit private healthcare insurance to pay for your healthcare. It's so absurd. Why would you want something for-profit worrying about your health? Because the more they deny your claims, the more money they make. So their interest, meaning for-profit insurance companies, are to deny your claims. Like, why does anyone want to protect United Healthcare, Aetna, Cigna, Blue Cross, Blue Shield? Like, what's the fascination with wanting to protect a for-profit healthcare company, an insurance company? Because we all know insurance companies are basically scams. Like, insurance is useless. Like, as Coco is saying, welcome, Coco. Insurance, for-profit insurance, is just stupid. It is so stupid. And I did a video on this yesterday or a couple days ago, maybe even 3 days ago, whatever it was, because this one actually pisses me off and people who are MAGA or on the right and who don't understand healthcare. And I was speaking to someone on a live at Millie Shillies, whatever her name is another creator on TikTok. And she's in the military, and she's completely clueless about healthcare, what healthcare, universal healthcare is. She just has a complete anti-American, anti-government stance and believes that government can't manage healthcare insurance. It's healthcare insurance. It's nothing else other than that. So that's what I think people are going to be interested about, because I think the Democrats, as a staunch independent, do a terrible job of trying to market or tell people what Medicare for all actually is. I mean, they're so bad at explaining what it is, and they get caught up into these silly fights about government healthcare. It's not a government healthcare system. So now that a lot of people are here, let me tell you, and I want to know why from people. If you want to join in, obviously, let me know in the comments or request up to talk to me about why you do or you do not support Medicaid for all universal healthcare insurance. So request and join the live. Tell me why you do or you don't, and let's have a discussion about it. But let me first mention, now there's a lot of people here, universal healthcare insurance, or Medicare for all. Let's make this super clear. what this is supposed to be. Number one, if you are going to have a social program, meaning a government program that protects its citizens, is there anything more important that should be paid for the government than health insurance? Like, let me know in the comments. Is there anything else that you would want the government to do to protect its society in terms of healthcare? Like, I think it's like number one. And yet we don't even have it. And the rest of the industrial world has universal healthcare. And all the ridiculous stories about Canada, they having to wait for surgeries and stuff, nonsense. Yeah, they do at times have to wait, but we have to wait here. For-profit healthcare insurance is even worse because you have to wait for the insurance company to approve it. So the absurdity of going to see a specialist in the United States and people saying, well, in Canada, they have to wait and they come to the United States. Number one, it doesn't happen that often. Number two, in other countries in Europe, it almost doesn't happen at all because they don't have to do that. You're just hearing these anecdotal cases here and there, and people use those talking points over and over. So Coco says, yes, it should definitely be number one priority. Like, there's nothing more important than this. And a lot of people don't understand what it is. Medicare for all is what it basically is. So when people think universal health care, they think the government is going to take over the hospitals, the doctors, the healthcare providers, the pharmaceutical companies. No, none of that. All of that remains for profit, which you could still argue is still a problem. Maybe it should be non-for-profit, but those things don't change. The only thing the government would get involved with is paying for the insurance. So instead of you paying your insurance to your company, like having part of your paycheck go to health insurance and the company pays part of it and you pay part of it, or if you have a small business and you pay for it through your small business, or if you're paying for it directly through the health marketplace, you're paying for-profit insurance. The only thing the government would do is replace those for-profit insurance companies. That's it. That's it. They become a government insurance program, and it's called a single payer system. So where you pay into the system, where you don't have to just taxes, it's a single payer, meaning the single payer is the government who's taking care of all insurance companies, taking care of all the insurance. And then the for-profit healthcare insurance companies basically go away because they're a scam anyways. They take too long to approve claims. They deny claims constantly. They make decisions on your health and the doctor doesn't. And that's where universal healthcare comes into play because the government would pay for it. Now, there's always a lot of people saying, well, we can't afford it. That's BS. We can't afford it. And I'm happy to tell you why. If someone has that question, it's easily affordable. Of course, it doesn't come free, but you're already paying for it out of your own pocket through your company, through your small business, or directly on the health marketplace. And this would be the biggest tax break that most Americans would ever see by not having to pay for-profit insurance and using our tax dollars to pay for universal healthcare insurance. That's it. That's all that changes. And people say the government can't do it because we can't scale. So I'm going to look for some questions here in the comments. People say, well, other countries do it and we're much bigger. So what? We're much bigger. You think it's harder to people say you can't scale it to 350 million people. Yes, you can. You already have 100 million people on some form of Medicare or Medicaid, and you just have to scale it to everybody else. And this is when people say about scale, we're not building more highways across the country. That type of scale, physical scale, across a network or a large country like ours is very difficult. 350 million people scaling that, it's a digital system. It has nothing to do with physical infrastructure. The physical infrastructure is already there. So you're not having to scale infrastructure. You're just scaling an existing program to everybody. It's digital. And the economies of scale work out to be less expensive the more people you have on it. So overall, per capita, meaning per capita, obviously total per more. But if you compare us to France or to Germany or to many other countries, we can scale it easily. Number one, because we already have the program. The program is already there. And it's really good in most states because it actually goes through some of the states when it comes to Medicare. But in many states, Medicare for all is actually really, really good. So when people talk about scaling it, that's not a problem. It's not that difficult. So I don't support those things because I'm not educated. I hope this helps. Let's see some comments here. Does anyone want to join and request up? And if there's people on the right that says, I don't support Medicare for all, come on the show and tell me why. Tell me why you don't support it. Now, I'll bring up this person, Millie, who is a content creator on TikTok, again, for being clueless when it comes to this topic, because she was in the military and she was comparing the government healthcare, universal healthcare, to the military healthcare, which is the VA system. That's not what Medicare for all would be. The VA system is a totally different system that's run by the military, it's obviously part of government, but it's military run and organized. And military operations are much different than civilian government projects are. So the VA is different because it's not just insurance. It's also the doctors, the hospitals, the providers, and so forth. So people who think it would be like the VA and the VA is a mess, you don't know what you're talking about. It would be nothing like the VA because it would be exactly like Medicare for all is, or Medicare currently is already. So it has nothing to do with the VA whatsoever. And that is a closed military system. There are problems, obviously, at the VA, huge problems. There are funding problems. There are the entire process and the mechanics behind the VA system are clearly flawed. But people who are in the military equate that what the military is doing, that if there was universal health care by the civilian government, they would be the same. They would not, because again, we already have Medicare now. We just need Medicare for all so that all of us can stop paying our private for-profit healthcare companies. It's such bullshit that we end up paying for profit because remember, the government has our best interests in mind. Now, I know people are going to laugh at that and think it, but think clearly for a moment. When it comes to this topic, the government completely has our best interest in mind. And it's because of one simple reason. There's a complete alignment. Because when we are healthy, we are more productive. And when we're more productive, what happens? We pay more in taxes. So the government wants to have us paying taxes. So by having us healthy, then we are more productive and we pay more in taxes. There is no conflict of interest when government run health insurance and us being healthy. It's in complete alignment. So we are more likely to do preventative medicine and preventative things to keep us healthy. Now, why should any of us, when we get injured, be afraid to call the ambulance or go to the emergency room because we're going to get a huge bill, right? That doesn't keep us healthy. That is dangerous. That has killed tens of thousands of people that should have called an ambulance or called a helicopter and should be in the ER as fast as possible. That's how good healthcare works. Instead of being worried about having to pay for something, when it comes to your health, we shouldn't even be concerned about that. When something happens with our health, we should be able to go to the hospital immediately and get the services we need because that is actually good for society. So answer the question, Cardi. I didn't see the question. If you're asked, how do we poor pay? Okay, so how do the poor pay the 20% coinsurance with out-of-pocket max? Are you talking to me? I don't know if you're talking to me, Car, but there with Medicare for all, there's no 20% coinsurance. So I don't know if you're talking to somebody else. Norway has socialized medicine. My friend's daughter has an appendicitis. She has to wait a full what? So Norway still ranks far superior to ours. Now, they do have a publicly run system. So that's not the same, Rodrigo. Norway does have a government. Actually, no, they're publicly run as well. So so they are. So they're not privately run. So Norway's health system is fully governmental. It's not fully governmental. It's mostly governmental. So in that scenario, where the government is not just controlling, that's a little bit more like the VA system, obviously, but done much better than our system is. So Norway is not the model here, even though it does rank extremely high, number 9, in terms of health rankings. Most other countries do a combination where the government pays for the insurance and the rest of the healthcare industry is either private or nonprofit. And it's only the government taking care of the health insurance. All right. So, yes, Cardia, yes, Medicare has a 20% coinsurance with no out-of-pocket max. How do the poor pay for that? It doesn't. Medicare does not have that. I was on Medicare for a couple of years during COVID. It doesn't have that. Actually, it probably depends on the state. Well, how do you pay for every other private insurance company practically has 20% where you pay 20% anyway. That's Medicare. Medicare for all. Many states, Medicare for all, in Medicare, in CARD, in many states, you don't have that. So you have to look up each particular state because the way Medicare is administered is through the states, and each state has a little bit different. Go look it up and tell me if I'm lying. I don't lie. CARD. So do your research, learn about it a little bit more. You can come on the show if you'd like to come on the show and talk about it. I'm happy to do that. Insurance is unnecessary. It's just for the middleman without any purpose, but to extract money. That's exactly right. Coco, why are we protecting for-profit insurance companies? It makes no sense whatsoever. It's really stupid. By the way, please remember to like the screens. I normally don't talk about specific issues. I normally focus on making sure we're eliminating corruption from our entire political system, meaning getting rid of the big money and making sure elections are publicly funded by individuals. But I think this is an important topic because it seems even most blue and red voters, especially those red voters in rural America, rely on the ACA and on Obamacare and on the health insurance marketplace. And that is a Band-Aid. The health insurance marketplace is just a silly Band-Aid. It doesn't work also. When they were passing the ACA, they had to strip out the single-payer system or the private being able to compete against private insurance companies. So it was called the public option, where the government was an option for you. You could sign up for government healthcare insurance, but they made sure the Republicans made Obama, they didn't have the votes, and they had to strip that out because they know if there was a public option, meaning a government option, that everybody would pay the government instead and make sure all their healthcare isn't covered because it would have been a fraction of the price as a for-profit insurance company. And they didn't want to hurt the insurance industry. But that's ridiculous, right? But of course, that was the Republicans that wanted to do that. So does anyone want to join me and discuss, how we could pay for it, things of that nature? Why do you or don't you support universal health care? If you have any comments or questions, let's have a discussion about it and tell me why you wouldn't support it. Or if you do support it, you can jump into the queue as well. I typically don't bite, so you're welcome to join and have a discussion. Many people often do, but today it at least seems like very few people want to jump in and talk about this. So let's see if there's any questions in the comments. I'll try and answer questions in the comments. Again, if anybody wants to request to join the live, please request to join the live, and let's have a discussion about Medicare for all. Because obviously the two topics that seem to be the most pressing going into the midterms next year are healthcare and affordability. Those are two issues. And so I normally don't talk specifically about a lot of issues in terms of in-depth, but I thought this one would be worthwhile to see if enough people wanted to talk about Medicare for all, because it's so stupid that we don't have Medicare for all. I mean, it is so ridiculous, shameful for all the tax breaks we give to billionaires and we give to corporations and all the tax shielding and all the loopholes and the money we give to the military and the waste and fraud and everything else. And the United States of America, the most powerful, richest country in the world, doesn't give its citizens health care insurance. Absurd. Ask You Vision says, so if the government took over health care, for the workers, the current healthcare companies would still work. That's exactly right. So I think you didn't mean to say take over the health. See, that's the thing. Took over healthcare. The government would not take over healthcare. The government would only, and maybe it's just you didn't type this all. The government would just take over healthcare insurance. It does not take over the for-profit hospitals. It does not take over the for-profit providers. It does not take over the for-profit pharmaceutical companies. Now, you can make an argument that some of those things, like hospitals, should be nonprofit. I'm not saying doctors should be nonprofit, just the hospitals themselves. So you could make an argument for that, but that's not what Medicare for All would do. Now, the biggest thing Medicare for All will do, other than providing healthcare insurance for all of us, is it would be able to negotiate or limit how much the for-profit companies could charge us for certain things. So if you had to have a surgery of some kind, maybe the government would say, no, screw you, that's not going to be $150,000. We're not going to pay that. You have to have a cap. And you have to control, or that's the purpose of government, to regulate. The best example would be pharmaceutical companies, because we all know that the United States or the American citizens get ripped off on drugs when we pay for drugs. I go to Europe oftentimes, and sometimes even when I have to pick up like an Advil or an ibuprofen, it's like a third or a quarter of the cost. We get screwed by the big pharma. We all know that. And if everybody had Medicare for all, the government would say, no, you're not going to charge us 10 times profit margins that you charge people in Europe or people in Australia or Japan. We're not going to allow that to happen. So all of a sudden, the costs would be controlled because the government would be able to control those costs and make sure that we all wouldn't be getting ripped off. Every state in America pays 20% co-insurance, no exceptions. That's wrong, Cardi. I've done it. I've had ACL surgery on Medicare, and I didn't pay a penny, not a penny, 20% co-insurance. So Google it again. Not true. Maybe it's just one state that it's not true in, but it's not true. The co-insurance, I think you're looking at Medicaid, not Medicare. But either way, and again, even let's say you even had to pay part of it, you still already pay co-insurance with private healthcare. So I don't understand the argument. I don't understand the argument about those types of things. If you have private insurance companies, you are paying oftentimes the entire amount up until a deductible. And then, so even if you are right, Cardi, it is possible I have it backwards. So that's okay, though. Even if I did have it backwards, that you can still pay the entire amount. And Bonnie says, my husband had Medicare, had shoulder surgery, and did not pay anything. So again, private healthcare insurance, you pay the entire amount up until your deductible outside of, let's say, normal doctor's visits and so forth. And then you have to pay usually 20% as well. Many times it's more. Many times it's 30%. Many times it's 40%. So those things are, you're arguing about something that's kind of irrelevant. You can make Medicare for all where it pays for everything. You can make it where it pays for 10%. We can go into the details where you can pay 20%. It doesn't matter. It's not the point. The point is, do you want government paying for your healthcare insurance? And I'd say absolutely yes, because in every other country, well, not every other country, I'll use my words wisely. In most other countries, the insurance in a social program format, not a government-run healthcare system, which is like France, Germany, the Netherlands. Some of them do full public systems, but most of them do insurance where the insurance is being paid by the government. You will collapse the Medicare system if everyone gets it. No, you won't. You won't collapse it. You do have to pay for it. Oh, Steve Gators, you're going to join. Okay, awesome. So let's talk about it. Steve, you're going to be up. Just give me a minute.
Hello.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
Good.
Good. Welcome. So I saw your last comment. You said you will collapse the Medicare system if everyone gets it. Is that what you wanted to talk about?
That's not my comment. That's somebody else.
Oh, sorry about that.
Moody. I'm Steve Gators.
All right.
But uh,
Yeah.
but I disagree. But to be fair to you, most people who even support capitalism don't really know. Let me ask this question real quick. Do you know double entry accounting?
I've heard of it, but no. When you want to educate us, what is it?
Sure, no problem. No, that's good. And that's what I'm saying. Most right wingers don't even know. So double entry accounting is the actual accounting system that's used in capitalism. So when you do Medicare for all and things like that, it's a different accounting system. So regardless of how you feel, you should know these things because this is what we're actually carrying out as a service. So I'll give you my quick pitch and you can let me know what you think. So the way to decide whether government can finance something is how complex and how many people are involved. So I'm not going to really care if it's a fire department, which is rarely used and has like a 30 or 40 people. It's not a complex budget. Does that make sense?
Sure,
So if
on a
one,
singular fire department, right? But across scaling across the country, it's obviously substantial.
yeah, but the point is that not everyone gets service fire department. Healthcare is far more common than seeing a fire department, right?
Sure.
Like I may rarely see a fire department. I'm more likely, and there's older people, seniors who get healthcare, go see doctors, consume drugs. It's a whole industry.
Yes.
So, so I'm just gonna break it down the logic. So when you have an industry that has so many people involved, you need a decentralized system of markets to deal with demand. So when you talk about Medicare for all, you're talking about the federal government setting price controls once a year, which it can't really do, even if it wanted to, you know. But it's central planning at the end of the day.
Well,
And
that's
because
a
health,
secondary thing, right? Setting prices is a secondary thing. We're just talking about insurance, right? Paying for everyone's insurance.
that yeah, but that's what price setting is. That when you do Medicare for all, it sets the prices. There are clinics, if they only did Medicare, they would go to business because legally they can only do the prices. They can't charge more or there's fixed prices. And there's about like 88 different price location maps across the country. Are you aware of this?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so basically what they do, because obviously you can't charge in New York the same price as like Kansas, right? That would make no sense. Like hip replacement surgery, you simply can't do it because it's different economic zones. So there's about 88 different zones. I don't think that's accurate, but because if you're in LA, Beverly Hills, you're going to charge more than if you're in San Bernardino. There's just different real estate prices. There's different factors that go into prices than the federal government attempting to set price controls. So the reason why capitalism is helpful, and again, most capitalists don't even know this, is through automation and it's through double entry accounting. Do you know how to make something cheaper? I believe we can both agree we want healthcare to be cheaper so that more people can have access to healthcare. Do you agree with that, Sabin?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So how do you make something cheaper?
More volume, scaling. There's many ways, different. It depends what you're talking about, right?
No, that's incorrect. That's what most people think. And again,
Economies of scale is certainly a way to make something less expensive, right? Because the
that's
margins can,
that's partly it, but
right.
I'll explain why. So the cost of something is simply the number of people involved and the tools required to produce that thing. So everything we produce is either a product or service, and you can just imagine a list of people, right? So if we take the cell phone, I can make a phone call from LA to New York very cheap, but we know in the 1950s it used to cost very expensive. Why? Because more human beings used to be involved in that process. Okay, so to make something cheaper, the answer to that question is we have to invent a tool, redefine a recipe of what it means to produce something. That's how we make it cheaper. Okay, so why is this so? Okay, why is this relevant? This is relevant because only through double entry accounting, when you track profit, can you actually make automation. So the story of capitalism is the story of automation. So the things that have dropped in price the most over the years are most deregulated private industries, such as the TV, the cell phone, you know, uh, computers. These have dropped in prices over the years, and they're the most private profit-making industries, and yet they enable people through prices. The things that have cost more than years are the things that have been subsidized by the government, such as healthcare and college tuition, and a little bit of housing.
Okay. So I don't understand.
So
You still make your point more clear. So are you suggesting that Medicare for all can't scale from the existing 130 people that are on Medicaid and Medicare right now to 350 million people? And why not?
half the healthcare spending in the U.S. is done by the federal government. I'm saying we need to have it privatized, have decentralized, because we need to redefine what it means to produce this healthcare And when you do central planning, you're setting one price. That's why when we subsidize colleges, prices have only gone up
We don't
because
we
there's
don't
no
we don't have central planning through Medicaid and Medicare operate through the state systems right now, right? They're not. It's not federally mandated a certain price. It's not a set price for every state.
there's 88 zones and they set prices to those 88 zones federally.
Okay, so right. So there's
So
88
they're
of them.
setting a price for like, let's say hip replacement surgery, right? They're setting a price. So it doesn't matter if like hip replacement surgery requires a certain material, which may cause the price to go up and down through the year. Medicare says, no, we set the price yearly, once a year to do that. It doesn't allow prices to go elastic as supply and demand occurs. You know what I mean? Maybe there's a war in another country and this makes a particular
All right.
material.
So are
which
you
causes
arguing against obviously Medicare for all in this country? And then why would you argue that 39 other countries can do it, but the United States can't?
No, they're not doing this efficiently. I'm arguing against every single industry because every single industry is a product or
They're not doing
service.
it as efficiently. What do you mean per capita? The United States pays more per
No,
capita
no, no.
on healthcare.
We don't care about how much money spent. We care about quality of care. The United States has higher quality care,
That's not true.
per capita MRI,
That's
more per
absolutely not
capita
true.
MRIs.
That's not true.
No, no, it is true. We have more MRIs. We have more advanced technology. The technology they have aren't the same quality of technology. But again, we
That's
have
not true.
50%.
There's not, you're going to have to show me sources to show that's not true because we rank somewhere in the 30s about in healthcare overall across our entire society compared to places like Germany and Japan and the
No, you
Netherlands
can
and
Google.
Switzerland.
We have more MRIs per capita than Canada. We have more of these technology
You have
machines.
more.
We
What does that
subsidize.
mean? Just because we have more MRIs, that does not mean quality of care.
No, you have the same. How can you have higher quality care without the same machines?
What do you mean? You just say we have more machines. Who said we didn't have the same machines?
No, 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 no. I'm saying we have higher quality care because we have higher
But
advanced
we
healthcare
objectively
technology.
don't have higher quality of care. We don't rank anywhere near the top in overall quality of care. I don't know where you're getting
No,
that
no, no,
from.
no, no. Those analysis talk about socialized medicine. They're not talking about the quality of technology because the difference is in the technology. If we have a procedure that's here that nobody else.
Technology is only one facet. There are the doctors, the education of the doctors, the techniques that those doctors are using. The technology is one aspect. Just claiming that we have more technology because we have more MRI machines does not prove the point.
We will also consume more healthcare in this country per capita
Of course we
than
do
other
because we
countries.
don't do preventative healthcare, right? We're terrible at preventative healthcare.
No, I would say the food system is
Oh,
really
and that's another one,
trouble.
right? It's never one thing, right? It's always a sequence of things, and that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. But what I'm saying is what you say was true. If your economic theory was correct about Medicare, single payer, then single payer food, single payer housing, single payer all industries would be effective, but they're not. The industries that have dropped in prices more are the ones that are cash pay and deregulated. Another example that's somewhat close to
You're
healthcare
trying to claim
is
that medical care in this country has reduced prices. We pay more for pharmaceuticals than every other country. Our surgeries cost more in
half
this
of health.
country.
I'm not
Our
saying we have a
MRIs.
private system. We would have a private system. Half of our healthcare spending is done by the federal government.
Right. Okay. And the other
That's
half
not a
is
private
not.
system. When you say cars, when you say computers, when you say TV, they aren't half spent by the
No,
federal government.
there's a half
They're
of,
done
there is a
privately.
private system, right? That's completely independent of the public system.
No, no, no. The spending with half of spending in healthcare is done by the federal and the state government in the United States. This is a fact. You can look it up. So we don't have a private system when half of it is done by the state.
I don't know how you make that equivalency. Just because part of the system or half of the system is publicly funded does not mean the other half is not private, that we don't have a private system. Most people in America actually are paying private healthcare insurance and not getting universal healthcare through a single
Yeah.
payer system.
Yeah. So like that's what I'm saying. Like in a private system, in a more deregulated system, it'd be like 90+%, just like food, just like the car insurance. And also we shouldn't bundle insurance to the employer. They don't have an interest in getting the best insurance for you. It should be decentralized, just like car insurance.
All
You
right.
buy it on the market.
I hear you. I don't agree with you. You could take the example of insurance, like property insurance, like homeowners insurance. Where would you make the sense that it's a monetary system almost exclusively? So if the government had a single payer system for property insurance and it wasn't for profit private insurance companies, where would the economies of technology come into play there?
Yeah. So first of all, insurance should only cover disaster stuff. You were using insurance for doctor visits. That doesn't make sense. That's like using car insurance to get your oil changed.
No, it does
So
make sense because it's preventative maintenance, and that the pound of an ounce of prevention is worth a
but it
pound of
prevents
cure.
shopping. It prevents shopping. When something's not, you use insurance for emergency stuff. Without shopping, you have no pressure to lower prices. This is why elective surgeries have dropped in prices while insurance covered surgeries have only increased in the last 20 years.
Right, there's a disconnect, right? Because someone doesn't feel like it's coming out of their pocket because their insurance is paying for it, there's no natural.
So so why would the providers of those services ever figure out a way to lower their prices if they just know insurance is going to cover it? If they know the government's going to subsidize it?
Well,
Just like
the government's
colleges.
also going to contract, like you said, the 88 zones is going to be able to look at where obviously things are being too expensive, or they could
How can they know? They don't know these services. There's no shopping mechanism involved. You have one single payer, and if they mess it up, they mess it up
It's not true because
everywhere.
dozens of other countries have already figured out ways to cap the costs of certain procedures and medical of drugs, pharmaceuticals,
But they have
etc.
no incentive to lower the price because there's no shopping mechanism. So there's no
Who
innovation
has
through
no
automation.
incentive to lower the price? The government or the
Yeah.
private companies? Of course, the governments do. They don't want
No,
to
no,
pay
no, no, no,
more.
no, 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 no. The private company, because there's no shopping mechanism involved. Does that make sense? So I'll give you an example. Let's say I do a hip replacement.
Yeah,
I
I
provide
understand.
hip
I actually
replacement.
understand that. I understand what you're trying to say. Yeah, that's that has merit.
Yeah, because like, why would I ever lower the price, knowing the government's always going to pay my price? Whereas if in a decentralized market, you have competition, some competitors can
How's
come
that
in and
competition working out for us now? Not very well, is it?
we don't have it because 50% is done by the federal
That's
government.
that's a ridiculous assertion. Just because that 50% is done by the government, you're saying we don't have an
But the
open
little
market on the
competition
other
we
side.
have, we create 50% of the new drugs in the whole world. And we subsidize the world
Uh,
because they take our patents and then they don't have to pay overseas. This like,
okay.
but of the little we have, we make innovation. But my main point is it doesn't matter if it's healthcare, it doesn't matter if it's food, it doesn't matter if it's housing. It's all been proven that you need a shopping mechanism to lower prices. So that way, when somebody comes in the game and says, oh, I can offer some service for cheaper, then the system can update. Whereas the federal government, when they do central planning, they do it once a year. Medicare for All does it once a year and they collect their vendors and that's it. We're just stuck with them. It doesn't matter if the prices go up. It doesn't matter if another company comes out with a lower price. We can't benefit from it. It's illegal to sell those services. That's the issue.
It's not illegal. You could also still have private insurance, but when it comes to preventative maintenance, it
No, no, it's
usually does
illegal for
erratic
me
it.
to. No, 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 no. I'm not sure if you know how central planning works or the Medicare. So they set prices and their vendors once a year. If I come out with a better way to do hip surgery, it's illegal for the doctor to do it because it's not covered under Medicare because the government didn't review it. I got to wait for next year.
Okay, and that's the worst thing in the world.
It's worse for the customer, right?
Temporarily,
Why is the government coming between me and the hospital as a provider?
because the for the private healthcare marketplace has proven to be horrible. It doesn't work for Americans. We get ripped off. It's absurd to
What's
me.
the
I understand
percentage
your
of
arguments.
profit that they make?
You have some points of view. I appreciate them. I'm going to end it here because while your views have some merit, I understand where you're going with them. You're obviously trying to promote capitalism, and I am a capitalist. And in most industries, I want capitalism and I want competition. When it comes to healthcare, absolutely
You don't
not.
want competition in healthcare.
I don't want not when it comes to insurance. No, not
Do you
when it
know
comes.
illegally they have to pay 85% to payouts? Do you know that? That's a legal law. Insurance is capped at 2 to 3%, maybe 5% profit. So when they deny a claim, 85% of that claim that they denied goes to other
Why
patients.
was United Healthcare denying 40% of their claims?
Doesn't matter 40%. It's illegal for them to take more than 5% of profit
Yeah, and you
and
believe that?
85% of the revenue. No, it's a law. Look it up.
Okay,
I
send
looked this up.
DM me the information. I'll leave
Yeah, sure.
on the closing. DM me the information and I'll take a look at it and we can talk about it again in the future.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, so there was someone else that wanted to join. They probably jumped out. Again, appreciate the points of view. Obviously, someone that was protecting the private insurance company model. I find it absurd because on every metric in terms of overall healthcare quality, the United States doesn't rank anywhere near the top of the chain. So that's not even talking about insurances. It's just talking about if this system was so great that we would have the best healthcare system in the world, taking away the cost structure. And even if you take away the cost structure, we're not even close to the top healthcare system in the world. And not only are we not even close to the top healthcare system in the world, we're the most expensive per capita over anyone else. So it's absurd that someone would argue, not absurd, it's very one-dimensional that person is going to claim that this model that we have is working better than dozens of other countries that rank higher in healthcare, in a universal healthcare. So again, we're just talking about replacing healthcare insurance, for-profit healthcare insurance. So if anyone wants to jump into the queue, I know that took a while. I'll try and be a little more succinct with the guests. But let's say that, tell me why you do or don't support Medicaid for all, universal healthcare insurance, because government healthcare, it would not be government healthcare. It would not be government controlling the private market in terms of hospitals and so forth. There's just a huge list of other countries that are superior to us. There's nothing perfect in terms of healthcare. You're just looking to constantly get better, and we're not even close to the top. Universal healthcare should be guaranteed by government policy. So healthcare as a right to all citizens makes sense. It's something that most people on the right even agree with. I should have asked the last caller what the business and what industry they're in, because they could have been in the private healthcare insurance market. They were very knowledgeable. And they had obviously had his talking points. So maybe they were in the healthcare, and that's something I'm going to need to ask everyone going forward. That's right. Coco says China. I don't know about China. Russia. China does. I'm not sure about Russia. We'd have to look it up. The Cuba used to have better healthcare insurance than us, and as a communist country, they ranked actually quite high on the list several years ago, but I don't know where they stand currently. Does anyone want to jump into the request, to join request up and tell me why you do or you don't support Medicare for all universal healthcare insurance? It just seems to make the most sense. Doesn't seem to make the most sense. It's objectively proven to be a much better system than paying for-profit insurance companies. Those of us that may have been during COVID were on Medicaid or Medicare. You can realize that the system is actually really quite good. All right, so that's because plenty of money interests play both sides. That's right, that's true. And some people that say we can't afford it. Oh, they can't afford it. This one drives me a little nuts. Yes, it's expensive, but let's say even on the worst case scenario, let's say you're already paying $500 a month. $1,000 a month for your healthcare insurance. That's essentially a tax. You're being taxed. It's just a tax that's not going to the government. It's a tax that's going to a for-profit healthcare company, a health insurance company. So let's say, even in the worst case scenario, let's say you had to pay the government instead in the single payer system, and you paid the government for your healthcare insurance. Number one, it would be certainly much less than a for-profit company because there's no profit involved. It doesn't have to be profit. Number two, the government would be able to control prices on pharmaceutical drugs and other things. So that would reduce your costs. Now, what I'm suggesting is we wouldn't even have to pay for it. It's because billionaires and corporations are not paying their fair share of taxes, and we all know it. We're all getting ripped off to the tune of over in between $1 and $3 trillion a year, trillion, not billion, that corporations used to pay 30% of all the tax revenue coming into the United States in the 60s and 70s, 50s and 60s. Now they only pay 8%. They've manipulated the tax code, meaning the rich and powerful, through our congressional leaders, to manipulate the tax code to allow all different mechanisms to shield themselves from taxes and to pay less taxes. So corporations need to pay their fair share of taxes. Billionaires and the ultra wealthy, I'm not talking about the top 1%. 1% is people that make $700,000 a year. That's a lot of money, but we're not talking about even taxing them more. If you do, we're getting $5 trillion a year in general revenue per year in under taxes. Corporations used to pay 30%. Now they're paying 8%. If they paid the 30% again, which they should, that would additionally add about $1.2, $1.3 trillion that could pay for this if we needed it to. But there are many other ways. It's even more than that. Yeah, so request up if you want to request to join. TK Cevics request up. So if you want to join Send M Frankie, you can join and just hit the silhouette on the bottom, request to join. We can talk about it. The top marginal tax rate was 90% in the 1960s. That's right, Leonardo. It used to be 90%, the top marginal tax rate. That was for anyone earning over $4 million a year back in the 60s, which equates to between $30 and $40 million a year. They used to be 90%, so they used to pay, obviously, their fair share of taxes then. And now they pay less, not only just because of capital gains, where most of their money is from capital gains, but they shield tremendous amount of their assets from taxation. And there's many mechanisms that they use to do that. So I have another guest to talk about this, and I'm going to ask each guest, tell me first why you do or don't support Medicaid for all, and tell me what industry you are and what generation you are.
So I've dealt with it from a few different angles, being a single parent, paid into it all my life, watched my dad pay into it all his life and got cut off from it, died in a hospice unalived. Unalived a year short of qualifying, right? So all of his life's paying into this grift, 3.5%, whatever it is. And as a self-employed individual, I'm paying 12.5% on every dollar. So seeing it from one side and the next, it's and you speak to it certainly in regards to taxation and all the crotchets which ingenuity has certainly invented, and the combinations of the day manipulated by money and influence have put into promulgation, right, to benefit the wealthy. So you're not wrong about that. But we have the sharks going after chum and the rats going after cheese. All of us divorced from any sense of what liberty means. And I've seen your stuff for a while. I've followed you and unfollowed you because, personally, I can't in any way support term limits. It's just a concession of ignorance, right? We have to concede that we're too ignorant to replace these people. It's not that we're ignorant. It's that basically we are all on the grift. We're all on the tit. We all benefit from seniority. If you want to end the incumbency, if you want to redress incumbency, term limits doesn't do it. No, you got to dilute the power and understand how the power is distributed to begin with. We don't. I can't find anyone. Now, if you understand what it means to have representatives and direct taxes apportioned among the several states as prescribed, man, I would love to find anybody willing to have that conversation. Now, I'm 57 years old. I've been a piano technician, electrician. I've been a manager for UPS. I've been a 3-time candidate for state senate, for parish-wide council at large, which is a body of 420,000 people. I campaigned and garnered 3.2% against 2 incumbents, all 3 of us Republicans. And last year against the House Majority Leader, the only no-party candidate statewide for Louisiana, right here, baby. Frankie Hires pulled off almost 2% against the House Majority Leader in a field of 5. So we can do this.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's what I promote that as well. There's lots of ways to do it, but you do have to realize the practical matter is overall in the country. And if you're saying we're too ignorant to do something else, well, we don't have a direct democracy. So it was never intended to be a direct democracy.
We have to. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's you can't. The people are too busy in their lives to educate themselves about every single issue. So direct democracy makes no sense. Now, if you're talking about also when it comes to that, in terms of for all practical matters, we have a winner-take-all system. So that means we have a 2-party system. Is it impossible for independents to win elections? No, it's not impossible. Is it practically impossible at this time? Yes, it mostly is, even though you may have a few examples here and there that shows it's not impossible. But in order to motivate the electorate to do something different outside of those 2 parties, it would take an enormous amount of influence to be able to do that, right? So it's not, from a practical perspective, it can't happen anytime soon.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree more, actually, on a couple of stances. First off, we have a democracy. That's all we have. And we surrendered the republic circa 1842. It's been one crotchet after the next. Essentially, once we introduced a second ratio, and we started virtually representing one state from the next by way of that. Once you introduced moiety, you ended up in a situation in 1843 where you had several states getting one representative for a value better than the other states. And it's devolved to such a situation that today, right now, what state are you in again?
I don't disclose that. It's just a
No,
provo.
I mean, okay, I'll pretend you're in, here, hold on. I'll pretend you're in, let's just pick a state. We'll go with,
Go with Maryland.
New Jersey. I'll just go with New Jersey, right? So New Jersey, I believe, has 9.2 million people, right, from the last census. Essentially, the way that this is working out, if you apply the same ratio that gives Montana and 11 other states or 12 other states one representative for every 542,000, and you extrapolate that to the state you're in, you're going to find that you're missing representative power to the tune of a total of 147 representatives totally. That's if we apportioned the House. And because there's 3 classes of states, everybody's a thief.
You're suggesting to change the
address
Constitution, though.
What's that?
You're suggesting to change the Constitution, right?
No, I'm not. I'm actually suggesting that we redress how the Constitution was infringed upon. See, this happens over time and over neglect. That's why people defend a democracy.
Listen, you're going down and down the weeds that most people probably don't understand and can't comprehend. I would advise you.
Man. We got 6,700 people that had 4 other choices that are getting a clue about this. Look, check it out, man. Check it out.
Hey, listen, you should do whatever you think you can do. If you can change the world however you think you can, you should do that.
We can't change the world. We can't change the world. We can only.
That's an expression.
It takes an ourselves thing, man. It's an ourselves thing. Nobody's going to do it alone.
Okay.
Good luck to you, brother.
All right. See you, man. All right. So I'll address quickly, because I think it's important. I do stand for, on most of my lives, are all about a 28th and a 29th Amendment. Elections, he said we have a democracy. Technically, he's right. We have a representative democracy in a constitutional republic. From a current practical perspective, we don't, right? Our democracy has been completely taken over by special interests, by big money, by NGOs, by foreign governments, by all different types of interests that ever since the Citizens United and many other court rulings that have eliminated restrictions on campaign finance. We technically have a representative democracy, but from all practical purposes, we have more of a plutocracy or a corporatocracy. We need to eliminate that corruption from government and remove all the money from government, meaning all the money that's coming in from corporate special interests and from foreign governments, et cetera, et cetera. The amount of money is polluted the system. There's basically very little difference between who's controlling our government and the corporations and all the other special interests. We don't have representation for the people by the people. And I'm for making sure that we remove those special interests. We remove that big money. Corporations are not people. Artificial entities are not persons, and money should not be speech. And that's, of course, what the Supreme Court decided on. And then the 29th Amendment means that being a politician should not be a career. And that's what the founders envisioned it, that being a politician should be a temporary civic service. So the only way to get to that in the existing age is what most people agree with. While term limits aren't perfect, term limits are helpful because it ensures that you have enough rotation of new power and new leadership coming into play. So we have term limits on the presidency. We need to have term limits at every level of government, every level of federal government, from the legislative branch, the executive branch, even the judicials. And the judiciary is a little bit different. You can move people around. They don't have to leave being a judge. They can stay being a judge forever, but they don't have to stay on the Supreme Court. So our entire system, as Lisa G. Marie says, we have been hijacked. Our entire representative democracy has been hijacked. That's a good word for it. It's been taking over. So we don't practically have a representative democracy anymore because we all know that our representation doesn't represent us. So I'm going to do a video on this tomorrow. We the people of the United States, the preamble to the Constitution, and what Abraham Lincoln said, a government for the people, by the people. Essentially, we have an illegitimate government right now because we don't have, and this is how the founder standards would view it, the government would be illegitimate right now because we don't have representation for the people by the people. It's being a representative for the corporations, for the foreign interests, for the religious zealot groups, and many other foreign interests. They're controlling our government. And if you wanted any proof of this is not an opinion, just go back to Trump's inauguration and look who was in the very first row. It wasn't congressional leaders, meaning our representatives. In the front row were all the billionaires and all the CEOs of all Silicon Valley and many other large companies from all different industries. In the front row behind the inauguration was the leaders of the United States in terms of our representation. The people who were actually supposed to represent them were behind them. So that's all the proof you need to know that we don't have, in practical purposes, a representative democracy, and that I always preach that if we have 50 million people that want to eliminate all the corruption from our government, the people have the power to do that. And then the 29th Amendment would need to be that politicians need to be temporary. They have to come and they have to go. They cannot stay in office. So the last caller or the last guest thinks that's wrong. There are some minor flaws with term limits because if you had a great representative, you would want them to stay in office. But power corrupts and you don't want people staying there. So there has to be a limit on how long they can stay, and they can't enrich themselves while they're there, and they need to go back home. So there's that. Okay, so now going back to Medicare for all, universal healthcare insurance. Does anyone want to request up and talk about this? Because it is a social program where we're just talking about universal healthcare insurance, not that the government takes over the entire healthcare industry. All right, so we're all in a big yellow school bus with no driver. That's true. Many times people still have the power. They just choose not to use it. That's true. That's what I always, and it takes, we're all being divided by all the different misinformation that's out there, and we need to come together. And that's why I try and do this show and try and do my videos to get people to focus on what really matters. And that's the corruption in government. It's nothing else other than that. Define all. Yeah, Natural Crystal says the president, that term limit works. That's exactly right. So term limits work. The presidency works. If not, we could possibly have, could still have Obama, and some people would like that. And that's not good. We want fresh people to come to office that can't enrich themselves. That's probably part of the problem is that the current president is enriching himself to no ends, to literally no ends. Let's see. All right, so that's my thoughts on the 28th and 29th Amendment. As a reminder, please follow me here on TK Civics. If you want to eliminate corruption from our government, I'm going to do whatever I can to raise awareness to the 28th and 29th Amendment, which those are proposed, what I would propose as amendments, 28 and 29. When I propose that in my videos, almost everyone agrees that those two things, we want to eliminate corruption because we don't have a representative democracy because it's completely polluted by money. All right, David Schmidt says, going back to insurance, universal healthcare insurance. If it only works if everybody pays into the system, we become a nation of freeloaders. That's not true, David. There are lots of fraud and abuse in the system, but don't say we become a nation of freeloaders. And most other industrialized countries have universal healthcare. There's nothing wrong with healthcare being a right. Most people in rural America, or not most, but I think it is a majority that want universal health care to be a human right when you pay into your taxes. So you're completely different. The freeloader having health care is ridiculous. You want your society to be healthy. You want them to be productive, and you want them to pay taxes. So if everyone has health care, you have a better system for that. All right. Yes, I have tried healthcare in one of those other countries. CVAR. Not a lot, but I have. And they all rank higher. There's dozens of countries that rank much higher in our healthcare. Don't give me the Canada argument that they wait for healthcare. You have to wait for services here as well. Rick, you're going to be up. I don't want to get into term limits, Rick. So if you have something else,
No, I just
Okay.
like the people in the chat are so ridiculous. Like, oh, you're gonna freeload healthcare? How is that possible? Like, how? Like, oh, I'm gonna get way more healthcare than I need to get. Like, I'm just gonna go sign up for surgeries. I'm just gonna get my appendix out just because I can, right? Because like we got all this free healthcare now. Like, what are you talking about? Like, how does one freeload healthcare? It's like not
We're a nation, apparently to them, we're a nation of freeloaders, but that's sort of just muddying up the waters. We're just talking about healthcare, and it's absurd.
because like Americans retire like so late compared to like everyone else in the world. Like it's wild how much Americans work.
Yeah, the funny thing with this particular issue is that it seems like the tide has really turned. People on the right, not everyone will admit it, but people are totally cool because they realize that Obamacare is awful. I mean, it's still a shit system. It's total shit.
Oh,
It-
god awful.
It's so bad, but yet
Yeah,
the-
I don't have healthcare because I'm in the welfare cliff. Like make just enough not to be able to like get the state healthcare, but like don't make enough to actually be able to afford actual healthcare.
yeah.
So like I do medical tourism. It's like part of my plan. I'm gonna get a checkup when I'm in China. Like,
Right,
it's
right.
Like it's cheaper.
Yeah, so it's such a shit system already, and yet the people on the right and people on the left, they like it because it's the best thing that they've had, and it still sucks.
Yeah, I mean, but people don't want to get rid of it because it throws more people off of healthcare, which is always one of the problems. But like, no, our healthcare system has been trash forever. It's been the joke of the world. There's a song by a punk band from the UK. In the song, it's 1985. It's called "Fuck the USA." And the very first line of the song is, "You go to the doctor, you have to pay." 1985. They're like, "This is a joke." Like, you guys got to be kidding me. Like, you go to America, you have to pay for the fucking doctor. Are you kidding?
Right. That's one of the first things that everybody mentions when they move to the United States from Europe, and they're just like, "Oh my goodness, what can I need
Not
to?"
even just Europe. Like even
Right.
poor countries, there's an option. Like I remember when I was in Morocco, there was like this like hospital. Or I was like, what is that building over there? There's like a bunch of people like light up. I'm like, what's the deal? He's like, oh, it's a hospital. And I'm like, you have to pay when you get there. He's like, no, that's the hospital is run by the mosque, and so like they don't charge for healthcare. They have private healthcare there too for like rich people, but like if you're poor, you could just show up and you just don't have to pay. Like that's just the thing. Like we don't even have that sort of system. It's just like such a antisocial culture to like be like, oh no, like poor people don't didn't have healthcare. It's just not good.
Alchemy 75, stop with the Israel, the anti-Semite stuff. Not appreciated, not welcome here. So go away. And bye-bye.
Well, I mean, we do send $3 billion a year there.
Oh yeah. No, hey, I'm not a Israel apologist by any means, but we also did help create the state, and we promised to protect them. So they are getting way ahead of their skis, but that's a whole different topic.
It's a country that should exist.
Well, yeah, let's not go in there, and I don't appreciate people just slamming the comments about shit like that. They've gotten over their skis about
off topic.
It's way off topic, right? There's a lot just to discuss about that topic, but it's just not today's topic.
Someday you got to come on my live, TK.
I didn't even know you have lives. Do I not follow you? And
I do.
I wasn't following you. I'm surprised. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah. I'm here all the time. I'm like a regular on your lives.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I just assumed I was following you already. So, and those of you who are watching, Rick and I have a lot of disagreements about a lot of topics, but this one's not one of them.
Communist in TK's life. He likes to have all sorts of different political types on, and I'm like the resident communist.
Yeah, you are the resident communist, and I'm cool with that until we get to the cliff, because we always get to a cliff at some point, and that's okay too. All right, so let's ask someone while you're here. Let's see if anyone wants to, because you have a lot of people commenting that they seem to be opposing Medicaid for all, but they don't want to come on and talk about it and point their views on why they think they're right. So if you want to join, request up, join us and tell us why you don't support Medicare or Medicare for all, or universal health care insurance, knowing how much shit our healthcare system is.
They're probably not even people, TK. They got the bots out on the internet. Like, it's
You know, you always hear about the bots, and what does it mean per se? Because, you know, typically the bots still have followers. They are commenting. Are they, you think they're
no,
AI generated
no,
commenting
that's not
bots?
true. No, yes, of course there are. Like that's the scary thing about AI is it makes the whole internet suspect.
Right.
Like, and we don't know. Like the question is like that's the whole thing. But like
We should have a
always
discussion
in my
about bots
mind,
someday. I need to do more research.
Twitter is something like 80% bots and has been the whole time. That's why they couldn't make any money off of it. They're like you can't sell things to bots. They're not buying.
Well, the people that are really making the money on Twitter are what came out, obviously, with the Twitter's new feature on exposing the actual scammers. Let's call them scammers because, you know, there's some of them are foreign influencers, but they're basically just scammers trying to make money from different parts of the world.
Scammers like the Department of Homeland Security is being run out of Tel Aviv. Let's bring that up again. That was one of them.
Yeah.
That's pretty stark. But no, Twitter. Okay, Twitter was heavily implicated in Arab Spring, which was basically like it was one of the first tech coups, and then there's Cambridge Analytica, which like showed that like Facebook and like a bunch of people were overthrowing governments like all over the place, including helping Trump get elected, which is when that shit broke. But they also helped with Brexit. They overthrew governments in like Kenya and Trinidad and Tobago, and like a whole bunch of elections, like all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the Arab Spring, though, that was prior towards, you know, the severe manipulation of social media.
No, that was the very beginning. It was over Twitter. That's what it was about. It was largely happening, and I know this because so I went back and watched the Anthony Bourdain CNN show, Parts Unknown. Right, like
Right.
he's like out there doing that, and he goes to Libya. And it's like he goes to Libya just like a couple months after they assassinate Gaddafi. Brutal stuff too. Like holy shit. Like I didn't realize how bad that was. But anyway, like he's talking to these people, and they're like, they're saying it to him. They're like, "Yo, yeah, like we were calling in airstrikes from NATO over Twitter. Like we were in the DMs with NATO being like, hey, like that was part of that, and like they were very hopeful at the time. They're like, oh, like there's a bright future for Libya. Bleak. That's a bleak series now because there's a lot of that going on.
Right. I'll have to watch it. I'm not too familiar on. I mean, I remember the Arab Spring pretty well, but I never dived into, you know, what started it, the mechanics behind it, and so forth.
Well, the interesting thing is like one of the ones that wasn't publicized was Bahrain, and that was one of the failed ones, and that was interesting because like Bahrain is like one of the because it was Tunisia. Tunisia was more or less successful. Egypt, they tried it, it didn't work out. They kind of went back to the shit that they had before, and there's a couple other places too. But no, it was a big deal, especially a big deal for Tunisia. But like that's when they realized that they could use social media to do coups. It was like a realization that like, hey, people can use this to orchestrate stuff, and you don't even have to be there. You don't have to send anybody on the ground. You don't even need. You only need a couple of.
Well, yeah, and let's
Like, you only need a handful.
to prove your point. Look at like MAGA Nation, 395,000 followers, 392,000 followers on Twitter. Dark MAGA, only 15,000 followers. American Patriot, another 143,000 followers. These accounts on X were manipulating, spreading information that Trump was actually retweeting at times from some of these organizations, or not organizations, these individuals. Again, you don't know if they're foreign interests or not, but what you do know is they were foreign actors. Like this one was Chile. American Patriot was in Chile. And then you have Dark MAGA is in Thailand. And then Eastern Europe was MAGA Nation. It's stunning because if you know people about in Pakistan and other parts of the world that are on Fiverr or on Upwork and all these things, they're always looking how to make money. And obviously, a lot of people around the world have figured, hey, if I just get Americans pissed off at each other and sharing a lot of misinformation, and I get a lot of views, I get checks sent to me.
Like brand deals, like this is
And brand deals is right.
Goes back. So like when they were talking about in the 2016 election, they're like, oh, there's all this misinformation. It's all Russian. And like you look into it and like there was like some, but like 95% of it was like these guys in Moldova who figured out that like they could just say outrageous shit about Hillary Clinton and Trumpers would click on it. No matter how outrageous, the more outrageous it was, the more likely they were to click. So they're just click farming. They're making like $600 a month off of clicks, and that's like enough to pay the rent and put food on the table. There.
Right, right.
Like that's
well, it's a combination, right? So I guess you'd call them scam. Those are scammers, just people looking to make money. And then there were, of course, the Russian troll farms that were run by the FSB, right? And then you had those as well. So when you combine
like
the
80-20, like 80% of it is just Moldovan click farmers. But there are, of course, and we have ours too, obviously.
Right. Right. Thanks for the likes, by the way, Lisa G. And let me just put a call out again. If there's anyone from the right or the left that doesn't support Medicare for all, request up, join us, and tell us why you don't request Medicare for all. It seems like everyone apparently is in agreement, or they're just not willing to put their mouth where and try and prove that Medicare for all is something that shouldn't be a human right. So, but this always happens on my lives. Obviously, I start off with one topic and I end off on some other topic, which I guess is okay. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing.
Is it in the UN Declaration, like healthcare, right to healthcare? Is that a thing?
Say again?
That's been a while since I looked at it. The UN Declaration of Human Rights.
Oh, I read that a while ago, 6 months, a year ago, maybe. UN Declaration of Human Rights. I think it is.
If I'm not mistaken.
Let's see. I don't know how it couldn't, right? I mean, healthcare did actually the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UDHR, adopted by the United Nations, did not explicitly mention healthcare. It didn't explicitly, just said everyone has a right to standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and his family. So it didn't mention specifically Medicare, medical care. All right. Natural Crystals. Did you look at it? Was it a bot, Natural Crystals? Did you look at see how many followers they had? I had an argument 5 minutes deep, not realizing it was a bot. Yeah, that must be infuriating, right? And I do the same thing, people commenting, and of course I'm commenting back to bots. That happens, of course. You know what I find interesting about the bot situation is that there are a lot of other lives sometimes that have hardly any viewers, and also political lives, and there are no bots. So that's why I always question whether how prolific these bots actually are on these lives, because you can go to some lives right now. Now, obviously we only have 36 people left in here now, but there are many other lives that only have 5 or 6 people talking about politics, and the bots aren't there. So why aren't they there? And some of these people also have tens of thousands of followers as well. So that's why I don't always know how much I'm buying into the sort of the bot narrative, because I'd like to see more proof to see how many bots are out there and how prolific it is and why only on some lives and not others.
I can tell you this. The number of bots is definitely not 0, and it's definitely not everybody. So it's somewhere in the middle there.
Well, how many people do you have in your life sometimes?
I don't know. It's been like lately I've been like not many. Back in the day I used to have like a couple hundred lately, 20, 30.
Yeah, I find that as well. I mean, today I had 130 at one point, but just even a few months ago, there was usually 500 people in here, 3 to 500. So it's you just don't know what's happening.
Yeah, the algorithm has to shift regularly so that people can't hack it.
Yeah, I suppose. It's interesting. I find that some people who have very popular lives have awful reach on their videos, and some people who have just modest amount of followers have some pretty popular lives, but again, like their videos get hardly any traction, and vice versa. It happens a lot. All right. So, anyone else, tell me why you do or don't support Medicaid for all universal health care insurance. The absurdity of that we don't have universal health care insurance in this country is perplexing to me, because I think most people don't understand. People are afraid of the government boogeyman. The government shouldn't take control of the healthcare system. It doesn't take control of the healthcare system. It just takes control of the insurance, nothing else. So your hospitals don't change, your providers don't change, the pharmaceutical companies don't change. It's just, do you want to pay money to your for-profit healthcare insurance company, or would you rather have the government pay for your insurance? And then you wouldn't have to pay for that insurance anymore. The government actually doesn't. People say how inefficient government is. Nope, the government actually does Medicare for all much more efficiently than private healthcare insurance companies could do, because they're constantly denying claims. The private healthcare insurance companies are denying claims, denying coverage, taking too long to approve coverage. And in a Medicare for all system, it doesn't do that. And Medicare right now doesn't do that as well. It's not a boogeyman, right? The boogeyman is the insurance company. That's exactly right. People thinking that government can't run things efficiently. Maybe it can't run things super efficiently, but I promise you it will run insurance more efficiently than for-profit insurance companies. Why does anyone support for-profit insurance company paying their CEOs tens of millions of dollars, their executives tens of millions of dollars, profiting off of your being sick, or they're denying claims and they end up profiting more? The absurdity of the inherent conflict of interest. And some people also, and this is where Rick would agree with me as a communist, and I am a capitalist, is that some things are inherently governmental. And the best example I have is for people who talk about that the government can't control healthcare. Think of it just like the Department of Transportation. Now, I am not suggesting the Department of Transportation is doing things really well. But that's more to do with the lack of funding that our infrastructure gets. But the Department of Transportation, you have a simple question to ask. Do you want your roads to be public, meaning government and state and federal government owned? Our roads are federal and state owned. Or do you want our roads to be privately owned? And it's a simple question, because some things I said are inherently governmental. And roadways and transportation is one of those things that's inherently governmental. It would be absurd for anyone to say that roads should be owned by private corporations, because that means every road that you move to and change to would be tolled. You would have a toll road everywhere. If private corporations own the roads and they paved for the roads to be installed in the first place, then you would have to pay tolls. And you would be at the whim of a for-profit company. So when things are inherently governmental, it means the government doesn't have to make money. Sometimes it will lose money. That's by design. Government does not need to make money on things, and it will lose money. That's the point. Inherently governmental, our Department of Transportation and the roadways. Now, it doesn't mean the people building the roads are all government employees. Just like in hospitals, you wouldn't have them government employees. So you have a Department of Transportation that sets the bidding, that has bidding, that allows private contractors, for-profit contractors, build the roads. Now, there are a lot of problems a little bit with that system as well, specifically, but no one would argue that our roads should be privately owned. And that's the absurdity of the healthcare system is we don't have to have insurance for privately owned insurance. You want publicly funded insurance, meaning a single payer system by the government to pay for our insurance. That's what you'd rather have. Okay, so maybe we should have all the same insurance as government employees have. That's a great thing. Absolutely. So congressional leaders have government healthcare insurance. And again, insurance. They don't go see government doctors. They can go see any doctor they want. They can go to any hospital they want, but they have excellent insurance. Congressional leaders basically have Medicaid, Medicare for all. That's what they already have. And this argument is that just that everybody should have health care. It's a right. It's a tax break for every single one of us that you'd have, because you wouldn't have to pay private for-profit companies. So that's the rationale here. I don't get a lot of people that don't support it. That means most people probably do support it. And the absurdity of it is that we don't have it. So anyway, that's my thoughts today. Again, I don't go into issues. Remember, please follow me here at TK Civics. We want to promote 28th Amendment someday. If there's ever enough people that actually want to take our government back and bring representation back to the people, someone's going to have to do it at some point, or we're just going to lose our democracy entirely. We're losing our representative democracy because we all know that our representatives don't represent us. They represent a lot of corporate special interests and so forth, and that needs to change. So if you're interested in changing and taking back our government, it just takes 50 million people. I know that sounds, people say that's a lot of people. No, it's actually not that many people. If 50 million people wanted to bring representation back to the people, we certainly could make it happen. It has to start somewhere. And I'm promoting that through a 28th and 29th Amendment. Let's stop arguing about all the other issues. Well, they're important issues. Even healthcare, affordability is important, but whether it's immigration, everything else gets solved if we have representation actually represents us. Again, the preamble to the Constitution is we the people of the United States. And as Abraham Lincoln said, government should be for the people and by the people. We all know that. It shouldn't be for artificial entities. You'll see a video from me tomorrow. I hope it goes viral. I think it's going to be a really good video to get people to understand that the root cause of every single issue that we face in America comes from the corruption in our political system. Everything, every single issue that we face today can be resolved if we eliminated that corruption and if representatives actually put people before profits, put people before corporations, put people before foreign governments, put their people, their constituents, before enriching themselves, put people before their NGOs, put people before lobbyists. All of that can be done if you reverse Citizens United, but you just can't reverse it because that's just a ruling and that can be changed again. Campaign finance has been destroyed in this country. Campaign finance restrictions. There's been many rulings over the past 50 years that have removed any of the guardrails on protecting the rich and the powerful from taking over our government. So thanks for everybody for sharing and reposting this live as well. That was appreciated. I think I'm going to shut it down for today. I'm going to leave everybody on with a closing, and I'm going to do the Sacha Baron Cohen, I think. No, I'm going to do two. I'm going to do Joe Pesci about the Constitution, and then Sacha Baron Cohen, and then we're going to call it a night. And tomorrow I have a good live planned, so I'll see everybody tomorrow as well.
Leave from?
At Harvard, we don't end our sentences with prepositions.
Well, in that case, which door do I leave from, asshole?
What democratic eloquence.
You asked the question, sir. Let me answer it. The
Thank you,
genius
Natural
of the
Crystals.
Constitution is that it can always be changed. The genius of the Constitution is that it makes no permanent rule other than its faith in the wisdom of ordinary people to govern themselves.
Faith in the wisdom of the people is exactly what makes the Constitution incomplete and crude.
No, sir. Our founding parents were pompous, middle-aged white farmers, but they were also great men because they knew one thing that all great men should know, that they didn't know everything. They knew they were going to make mistakes, but they made sure to leave a way to correct them. They didn't think of themselves as leaders. They wanted a government of citizens, not royalty. A government of listeners, not lecturers. A government that could change, not stand still. The president isn't an elected king, no matter how many bombs he can drop, because the crude Constitution doesn't trust him. He's a servant of the people. He's a bum, okay, Mr. Pitcairn? He's just a bum. And the only bliss that he's searching for is freedom and justice.
Yeah, obviously from My Cousin Vinny. That wasn't from My Cousin Vinny, but when you hear Joe Pesci, that's the first thing I think about is My Cousin Vinny. And then they're going to go to Sacha Baron Cohen from about 15 years ago and The Dictator. If you want to see, 15 years ago, the prediction of what democracy could be like if it turned into a dictatorship. And this is Sacha Baron Cohen, and this relates very well to today's political atmosphere.
This Constitution is nothing but a license for oil companies and foreign interests to destroy my beloved Wadiya.
Oh, if you listen to that first line, this Constitution is nothing more than a license to give corporations the access to our oil. That's exactly what's happening in Venezuela right now. We're threatening to overthrow the dictator of Maduro. And it's basically just to get access to Venezuela heavy crude oil by Exxon in particular. ExxonMobil, if you're not familiar, you should please repost that video. Go look in my video feed and you'll see a video about that the Venezuela drugs that were attacking Venezuela because of their transiting drugs to the United States is false. It is a bullshit narrative. It is not true. Venezuela accounts for very little sourcing of the illegal drugs that come into the United States. This is a play. ExxonMobil has been trying to promote or advocate for the removal of the dictatorship of Maduro in Venezuela in order to get access to their oil, because right now Venezuela oil is very low productivity and it's a heavy crude oil. China and Russia have access to some of that oil. And the ExxonMobil has been advocating to overthrow the government. So basically what's happening, again, we've seen this movie before, is that ExxonMobil is trying to leverage Marco Rubio and Trump to overthrow another government in order to get access to their oil, because they want to install a Western-friendly government in Venezuela. So ExxonMobil is using the United States military and the men and women of the United States military to use it as a police force to overthrow a government so that they can get access to the oil. That's what this is about. And you can just hear it in that clip. That's what he said in the very first statement. So listen to it again.
Wadiya will remain a dictatorship. Woo! Oh, be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the need.